That's no reasonable.
That's not my deal. That's not my deal.
Yes, it's exactly what you said.
I'll describe my
do
deal
this
to
at
you.
every debate.
$7 trillion of our national debt due to these toxic neocons. You can put lipstick on a Dick Cheney, it is still a fascist neocon. January 6th now does look like it was an inside job. The 2020 election was indeed stolen. You have a corruption problem, and I think that that's what people need to know. Nikki is corrupt.
Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. Today we're going to be covering the most recent GOP debate. Now, this one was fiery at times and has a few pretty hilarious and pretty based moments, actually. So you're going to enjoy this one. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Ambassador Haley, you left government service in 2018 with just $100,000 in the bank. 5 years later, you're reportedly worth $8 million. Thanks to lucrative corporate speeches and board memberships like you had with Boeing. Weeks ago, you met with Wall Street heavyweights, including leaders from JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and BlackRock. Several other billionaire investors are reportedly ready to endorse you, or recently have, all of which comes with expectations. Aren't you too tight with the banks and the billionaires to win over the GOP's working class base, which mostly wants to break the system, not elect someone beholden to it?
When it comes to these corporate people that want to suddenly support us, we'll take it. But I don't ask them what their policies are. They ask me what my policies are. And I tell them what it is. Sometimes they agree with me, sometimes they don't. Some don't like how tough I am on China. Some don't like the fact that I've signed pro-life bills. Some don't like the fact that I may oppose corporate bailouts. That doesn't matter. That's who I am. And that's why the most conservative grassroots group in the country, Americans for Prosperity, endorsed me last week.
I want to go back, though, to Nikki Haley's comment from earlier that she is somehow not responding to the will of these donors. Nikki, you were bankrupt when you left the UN. After you left the UN, you became a military contractor. You actually started joining service on the board of Boeing, whose back you scratched for a very long time, and then gave foreign multinational speeches like Hillary Clinton is, and now you're a multimillionaire. That math does not add up. It adds up to the fact that you are corrupt. And when I said they were bought and paid for, I meant the Republican establishment, not the Democratic establishment. Now you have Reid Hoffman, the person who's effectively George Soros Jr., funding lawsuits across this country against Donald Trump to keep him off the ballot, funding left-wing causes. We discovered this week that he is one of Nikki Haley's largest supporters. Larry Fink, the king of the woke industrial complex, the ESG movement, the CEO of BlackRock, the most powerful company in the world, now supporting Nikki Haley. And to say that doesn't affect her is false, because it's after that meeting later that day that she says that every American needs to be doxxed by having their ID, their government-issued ID, tied to what they say on the internet. So I think that this is far more corrupt than I even imagined when I entered politics.
Guys, just a quick reminder that if you're enjoying this video, if you want to help a brother out, to chuck a like on it below, and also subscribe to the channel if you get value from this sort of stuff. Back to the clips.
And in terms of these donors that are supporting me, they're just jealous. They wish that they were supporting them, but I'm not going to sit there and deny it.
This is really important for people to understand. We're marching towards fascism under Biden. Jack Smith has subpoenaed every last retweet that someone has issued from Donald Trump in the year 2020. The only person more fascist than the Biden regime now is Nikki Haley, who thinks the government should identify every one of those individuals with an ID. That is not freedom, that is fascism, and she should come nowhere near the levers of power, let alone the White House.
That you said that every anonymous internet user needs to out themselves. They're both hitting you on it.
I would be happy to, and I love all the attention, fellas. Thank you for that. You know, I'll say this. What I said was that social media companies need to show us their algorithms. I also said there are millions of bots on social media right now. They're foreign, they're Chinese, they're Iranian. I will always fight for freedom of speech for Americans. We do not need freedom of speech for Russians and Iranians and Hamas. We need social media companies to go and fight back on all of these bots that are happening. That's what I said. As a mom, do I think that social media would be more civil if we went and had people's names next to that? Yes, I do think that, because I think we've got too much cyberbullying. I think we've got child pornography and all of those things. But having said that, I never said government should go and require anyone's name.
That's false.
He said, I want your name.
She
as president of
absolutely
the
said
United
it.
States, her first day in office, she said, one of the first things I'm going to do.
I said we were going to
social
get
media
the
is,
millions
I want
of
your
bots
name.
She wants
That's what she
government
said.
ID to
Hold on,
dox
finish
every
what you're
American.
saying.
That's
Hold
what
on.
she said. You can roll the tape. She said, I want your name. And that was going to be one of the first things she did in office. And then she got real serious blowback, and understandably so, because it'd be a massive expansion of government.
Actually,
We have anonymous speech. The Federalist Papers were written with anonymous writers. Jay, Madison, and Hamilton, they went under Publius. It's something that's important, and especially given how conservatives have been attacked and they've lost jobs and they've been canceled. You know the regime would use that to weaponize that against our own people.
Okay,
It was a
so
bad
I have
idea,
to say,
and she should own up to it. Come on now, what are we doing here?
15 seconds, and then there is the governor, former governor of New Jersey, who
cracks me up
deserves it.
because Ron is
I got
so
it.
hypocritical, because he actually went and tried to push a law that would stop anonymous people from talking to the press, and went so far to say bloggers should have to register with the state if they're going to write about elected officials. It was in the check your newspaper. It was absolutely there.
Some
I
legislation.
have
That
never
repeals her
said
ammunition
government
use
should.
No more,
to
no more.
trample on your constitutional
come back to it
rights.
later. No,
This is
no.
more dangerous than the
You're
Democrats.
lying.
This section's over. Okay.
How could you stand there just smiling away whilst you're being accused of the most rank corruption that you can possibly engage in, especially considering it's all verifiably true? And let's have a look at what they're talking about in terms of the censorship and what she actually said.
When I get into office, the first thing we have to do, social media accounts, social media companies, they have to show America their algorithms. Let us see why they're pushing what they're pushing. The second thing is every person on social media should be verified by their name. That's, first of all, it's a national security threat. When you do that, all of a sudden people have to stand by what they say, and it gets rid of the Russian bots, the Iranian bots, and the Chinese bots. And then you're going to get some civility when people know their name is next to what they say.
Accountability.
And they know their pastor and their family member is going to see it. It's going to help our kids, and it's going to help our country.
They need to verify every single person on their outlet, and I want it by name.
Wait a minute.
I never said government should go and require anyone's
That's
name.
false.
And I want it by name.
And all of the other aspects of her corruption. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to realize that a politician running to be the leader of the free world should probably not have significant ties to arms companies. The very arms companies that profit off of the very wars that you keep on endorsing. Coincidence. And it's also a bit of a red flag, might I say, that she's supported by BlackRock, the company that is responsible for the ESG scandal that has basically the whole world in a vice grip.
Nature lets you be who you are.
The very company that's buying up American homes at an alarming rate, and that's also won the contract to rebuild Ukraine after the war. And now she wants the government to be in charge of what you can and can't say on social media. And she wants to take away the possibility of online anonymity. I hate the Twitter trolls just as much as the next man, but no, we'll keep that freedom. Thank you very much. More red flags than a Chinese communist parade, ladies and gentlemen. But the reality is, guys, that if you don't know where to look, then you'll never know about this corruption. And that's why I get my news from the sponsor of today's video, Ground News, a startup that puts tens of thousands of sources and articles in one place and allows you to see who owns the source, their factuality, and where they sit on the political spectrum. So check out what I found on Ground News just today using my favorite feature, which is the blind spot. California Targets, and I mean the shop Targets, without gender-neutral toys will be fined in 2024. Surprise, surprise, guys, the left reporting that one 0, and the right reporting it 93%. And then even worse, guys, Biden was in direct contact with his son Hunter's business partners using email aliases as VP. And we click into this one and we can see that there are 0 sources reporting on the left, the center don't even want to touch it, and all of the sources that are reporting it are on the right. And you go just over to the right here and you can see the bias distribution chart, which is a visual representation of all of the sources reporting on it and where they sit in the political spectrum. They've even got a super convenient app so you guys can check them out with the link in the top of the bio, ground.news/rattlesnake. That's ground.news/rattlesnake to help them with their mission to keep the news more transparent and and to help out the channel. And now onto the topic of Ukraine.
You've got to punch them hard and let them know that. That's the only way they're going to respond. So the way you do that is you go after their infrastructure in Syria and Iraq where they're hitting our soldiers. That's what you do, and then that's when they'll back off. The problem is you have to see that all of these are related. If you look at the fact Russia was losing that war with Ukraine, Putin had hit rock bottom. They had raised the draft age to 65. He was getting drones and missiles, drones from Iran, missiles from North Korea. And so what happened? When he hit rock bottom, all of a sudden, his other friend, Iran, Hamas goes and invades Israel and butchers those people on Putin's birthday. There is no one happier right now than Putin because all of the attention America had on Ukraine suddenly went to Israel.
I want to say one thing about the tie to Ukraine, if I may. So foreign policy experience is not the same as foreign policy wisdom. I want everybody at home to note that I was the first person to say we need a reasonable peace deal in Ukraine. Now a lot of the neocons are quietly coming along to that position, with the exceptions of Nikki Haley and Joe Biden, who still support this, what I believe is pointless war in Ukraine. And I think those with foreign policy experience, one thing that Joe Biden and Nikki Haley have in common is that neither of them could even state for you 3 provinces in eastern Ukraine that they want to send our troops to actually fight for. Look at that. This is what I want people to understand. These people have, I mean, she has no idea what the hell the names of those provinces are, but she wants to send our sons and daughters and our troops and our military equipment to go fight it. So reject this myth that they've been selling you, that somebody had a cup of coffee stint at the UN and then makes $8 million after, has real foreign policy experience. It takes an outsider to see this through. Look at the blank expression. She doesn't know the names of the provinces that she wants to actually fight for. And there's her puppet masters right there, the donors right there that are playing like the puppet masters.
Hold on. Let me just say something here. You know, his reasonable peace deal in Ukraine, he made it clear. Give them all the land they've already stolen. Promise Putin you'll never put Ukraine in Russia, and then trust Putin not to have a relationship with China. Let me tell you something. That's no reasonable.
That's not my deal. That's not my deal.
Yes, it's exactly what you said.
I'll describe my
deal.
You
do this at every debate.
I'll tell you exactly what it is.
Don't interrupt me. I didn't interrupt you. Okay? You
Tell
say
them
this.
about how you
You
want to send
do
our
this
kids to die.
You
Go
do
for
this
it.
at every debate. You go out on the stump and you say something. All of us see it on video. We confront you on the debate stage. You say you didn't say it, and then you back away. And I want to say
exactly what I said, Chris.
I'm not done yet.
Well, this is
now, look,
this is nonsense. This man is spewing. This man is spewing nonsense.
I'll tell you something. This is the 4th debate. The 4th debate that you would be voted in the first 20 minutes as the most obnoxious blowhard in America. So shut up for a little while.
I'm gonna respond to that. I want to say your version. After the rainbow, I'll take that.
I want to say something else. We're now 25 minutes into this debate, and he has insulted Nikki Haley's basic intelligence, not her positions, her basic intelligence. She doesn't know regions. She wouldn't be able to find something on a map that his 3-year-old could find. Look, if you want to disagree on issues, that's fine. And Nikki and I disagree on some issues. But I'll tell you this, I've known her for 12 years, which is longer than he's even started to vote in the Republican primary. And while we disagree about some issues and we disagree about who should be president of the United States, what we don't disagree on is this is a smart, accomplished woman, and you should stop insulting her.
So I'm going to take this, I'm going to take several times over. So first of all, I think we just learned something from Chris Christie. We learned 3 things. We learned 3 things right there. First of all, Chris Christie also doesn't know what provinces in eastern Ukraine he actually wants us to fight for. Chris, your version of foreign policy experience was closing a bridge from New Jersey to New York.
Yeah.
So do everybody a favor, just walk yourself off that stage, enjoy a nice meal, and get the hell out of this race. When it comes to Nikki, I think if you're going to actually send your sons and daughters to go die in somebody else's war, you better, excuse me, Chris, I'm speaking, and I'm not done yet.
I haven't heard a time when you aren't
and we're
speaking.
going to be done. So listen up to this, is if these people want to send your sons and daughters to go die in Ukraine, they've been arguing for it for a year. $200 billion of our taxpayer money sent over. Neither of them could even name for you the provinces that they actually want to protect. And this is the people who have been touting their so-called foreign policy experience. It is intellectual fraud. These people are lying to you, the same people who told you about weapons and mass destruction in Iraq. To justify that invasion, didn't know the first thing about it, yet they sent thousands of our sons and daughters to go die. The same people who told you the same in Afghanistan, where the Taliban is still in charge 20 years later. $7 trillion of our national debt due to these toxic neocons. You can put lipstick on a Dick Cheney, it is still a fascist neocon.
Thank
and
you,
you
Mr.
see that
Ramaswamy.
today.
Thank you, Mr.
It's Dick
Ramaswamy.
Cheney all over again in this party.
Thank you, Mr. Ramaswamy. 15 seconds.
Name the provinces. Neither of you could even name the
Ramaswamy.
first thing about Eastern countries.
I think we've had enough of this.
Think about that.
Let me just.
It's actually, Crimea is the wrong answer.
Absolutely love that double down there by Vivek. And he absolutely should be questioning her intelligence because let's just face it, guys, she has maybe a room temperature IQ at best. But seriously, guys, respect to Vivek here because I don't know how I'd be able to keep a straight face when I'm debating against somebody that jiggles when they're angry.
Which is longer than he's even started to vote in a Republican primary.
When you're on your fourth portion and mum tries to take your plate away.
I'm not done yet.
But the worst part there, guys, is when Carbohydrate Chris starts simping on Nuclear Nikki.
This is a smart, accomplished woman. You should stop insulting
So
her.
I'm going to take
So cringe. But Chris, brother, word to the wise, she's into defense contractors. So if you're trying to shoot your shot, maybe get some of that war profit under your belt. If there's any room under your belt, that is. But jokes aside, guys, Vivek is absolutely 100% correct here about Ukraine. And he's been right all along, especially when he calls out the corrupt politicians who have a vested interest in that war. And now onto the part where they talk about Trump.
Governor Christie.
I actually did that as governor of South Carolina.
Governor Christie asked last night in Iowa whether he would be a dictator if he wins a second term in office. Donald Trump quipped, no, quote, except for day one, promising to seal the southern border. He has also pledged to begin the largest deportation operation in American history, saying that migrants are, quote, poisoning the blood of our country. He has pledged to round up and expel an estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. What do you make of that plan?
I think it's completely predictable. I mean, look, he's made it very clear. There's no mystery to what he wants to do. He started off his campaign by saying, I am your retribution. 8 years ago, he said, I am your voice. This is an angry, bitter man who now wants to be back as president because he wants to exact retribution on anyone who has disagreed with him, anyone who has tried to hold him to account for his own conduct. And every one of these policies that he's talking about are about pursuing a plan of retribution. And yet, at the first debate, my three colleagues on this stage, when asked if he would be convicted of federal felonies, would they still support him, raised their hand, looked into the camera, and let everybody know that they would still support him, even if convicted of federal felonies. Let me make it clear. His conduct is unacceptable. He's unfit, and be careful of what you're going to get. If you ever got another Donald Trump term, he's letting you know, I am your retribution.
Thank you.
Only be, Elizabeth, he will only be his own retribution. He doesn't care for the American people. It's Donald Trump first.
I think it's safe to say, guys, that Donald Trump not coming to these debates is one of the most alpha moves of all time. If he was there, he basically would have been giving a platform to his opponents. But instead, he's just watching the debates from Mar-a-Lago, probably smashing a Diet Coke, chilling with Trump Jr., and probably just laughing at all these people clamoring for second place and talking about him. Alpha dog behavior. But Carbohydrate Chris, on the other hand, has lost every single one of these debates and is getting more and more triggered and mad. And his Trump derangement syndrome is getting worse with every passing day. He's going to be the only one trying to exact any revenge here, albeit taking his frustrations out on the hotel buffet breakfast.
You have said Trump is not the same man he was when he ran in 2016. Your campaign is running ads showing Trump confused. And you have said he has, quote, lost the zip on his fastball. You seem to be saying Donald Trump is no longer mentally fit to be president. Is that what you think?
Look, he is showing, Father Time is undefeated. The idea that we're going to put someone up there that's almost 80 and there's going to be no effects from that, we all know that that's not true. And so we have an opportunity to do a next generation of leaders and really be able to move this country forward. We also need a president that can serve 2 terms.
The question was very direct. Is he fit to be president or isn't he? The rest of the speech is interesting, but completely non-responsive. And if we were in a courtroom, they'd strike the answer and say, Governor DeSantis.
No, they wouldn't. They would say that
you're a smart
they would
man.
argue that
No, they would.
No, they wouldn't.
They would
Chris.
strike the answer
no, they wouldn't.
because you're not answering
you
it.
Just
is he
don't
fit?
like. You
is
have
he
your.
fit?
You have
no.
your thing.
Is he
you
fit
have
or
your
isn't
thing.
He? No, I don't have my thing.
We don't.
He's the thing. Is
we
he
do
fit
not
or
want
isn't
to
he?
do someone
You're
that's
talking about
almost
him being 80 years
it
old.
doesn't mean
Ron,
that somebody
is he
couldn't
fit?
get elected. That's
Ron,
up to the people. That
Ron,
but I think we have an opportunity to do somebody who's in.
Ron,
Okay.
is he
I think
fit?
we have an opportunity to do somebody.
Okay, last one here, guys. But I just have to say, it really is very rich for Carbohydrate Chris Christie to be asking anybody else if they're fit to run. Choice words there from a guy with a BMI that looks like a social security number. My man is literally one late night Twinkie away from chronic heart disease or diabetes. So if I were him, I would think twice about questioning Donald Trump's fitness, who can still send a Pro V1 300 yards down the fairway, gun barrel straight. And now for the next bit, guys, which is pretty amazing because Vivek goes full on red pill based mode here.
Is all three of them have been licking Donald Trump's boots for years for money and endorsements. Ron DeSantis, you've been a great governor, but you would have never been one without actually begging Donald Trump for that endorsement.
And you attacked him in your book a year ago.
Same thing with Chris Christie as a lobbyist, begging them for COVID money for his special interests in New Jersey, prepping him for the debates last time around. These people are now Monday morning quarterbacking some decision he made. I think the real enemy is not Donald Trump. It's not even Joe Biden. It is the deep state that at least Donald Trump attempted to take on. And if you want somebody who's going to speak truth to power, then vote for somebody who's going to speak the truth to you. Why am I the only person on the stage, at least, who can say that January 6th now does look like it was an inside job? That the government lied to us for 20 years about Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11? That the Great Replacement theory is not some grand right-wing conspiracy theory, but a basic statement of the Democratic Party's platform. That the 2020 election was indeed stolen by big tech. That the 2016 election, the one that Trump won for sure, was also one that was stolen from him by the national security establishment that actually put up the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that they knew was false. There's a reason why I'm the only person on the stage who can say these things. That's what it's going to take, not people who are licking his boots one time and now Monday morning quarterbacking him and criticizing him when it's convenient.
Let's have a quick recap of the thermonuclear bombs that Vivek Ramaswamy just dropped. Jan 6 was an inside job based. Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11 getting warm. The 2020 election was stolen by big tech. I'd go a few steps further, but okay. This is awfully based by Vivek, guys. And if I were him, I would invest in a good old-fashioned bulletproof vest because he is really starting to hover above the target now. And now on to the next part, where Chris Christie talks about trans surgeries for kids.
You do not favor a ban on trans medical treatments for minors, saying it's a parental rights issue. The surgeries done on minors involve cutting off body parts at a time when these kids cannot even legally smoke a cigarette. Kids who go from puberty blockers to cross-sex hormones are at a much greater likelihood of winding up sterile. How is it that you think a parent should be able to okay these surgeries, never mind the sterilization of a child? And aren't you way too out of step on this issue to be the Republican nominee?
No, I'm not. Because Republicans believe in less government, not more. In less involvement with government, not more in government involvement in people's lives. And you know what, Megan? I trust parents. And we're out there saying that we should empower parents in education. We should empower parents to make more decisions about where their kids go to school. I agree. We should empower parents to be teaching the values that they believe in their homes without the government telling them what those values should be. And yet we want to take other parental rights away.
You talk about parental rights. Let's talk about them. When you were governor in 2017, you signed a law that required new guidelines for schools dealing with transgender students. Those guidelines required schools to accept a child's preferred gender identity, even if the minor's parents objected.
Not true.
And it said that there is no duty for schools to notify parents if their son or daughter changes their gender identity, allowing this serious issue to remain a secret between the school and a child. How is any of that pro-parental rights?
By the way, that's simply not true.
You're doing what you accuse me of, Chris. It's absolutely true.
That's simply not true. That's simply not true. That law was put into effect in 2018 and regulated in 2018 after I was
you
out of
mandated the
office,
guidelines.
No, we did not, Megan. We did not issue those guidelines, and you're wrong about that. Simply wrong. I have stood up each and every time.
So I think if this is one issue that's disqualifying, it's this one.
I stood up every single time for parents to be able to make the decisions for their minor children.
But parents...
Every single time, parents should make those decisions. And by the way, you know what? Every once in a while, parents are going to make decisions that we disagree with. But the minute you start to take those rights away from parents, you don't know that slippery slope, what rights are going to be taken away next, and what's going to be imposed on you.
As a parent, you do not have the right to abuse your kids. This is cutting off their genitals. This is mutilating these minors. These are irreversible procedures, and this is something that other countries in Europe, like Sweden, once they started doing it, they saw it did incalculable damage. They've shut it down.
Now, we mentioned before that if Chris Christie wants to shoot his shot with Nikki Haley, then he might want to get a bit more involved with the defense contractors. But I don't know, maybe he's already got some of that farmer dough rolling in, because nobody in their right mind that is not being influenced by their donors would possibly run for President of the United States as a conservative, whilst advocating for children to be able to irreparably mutilate themselves because they saw a TikTok video and now their non-binary teacher has convinced them they're trans.
And I found my own love, and that's okay, and I think everybody should be allowed to do that, and that's what I fucking teach in the classroom, okay?
I would say he's probably making some farmer moves, but seriously, what awful logic he uses there. We believe in less government. So kids should be able to irreparably mutilate themselves if their weak parents are sufficiently beaten down by freaks and ideologues who tell them that their kid will delete themselves if they don't play along. Because we believe in the rights of parents. Well, what about if the parents don't want to feed their kids, Chris? Or what about if they wanted to sell their organs on the black market or have their kids sleep outside in the dog kennel? I mean, who are we to take away their parental rights? Yes, Chris, because conservatives don't believe in governments enforcing laws to protect children. Good one. I'm sure you'll get that CNN pundit job that you're gunning for with those sorts of opinions.
We were just talking about the trans issue. This is a symptom of a deeper cancer in American life, identity politics. This new religion that says your race, your gender, and your sexuality are your identity. It is anti-American. It is meritocratic, it's anti-meritocratic, and it is dividing this country to a breaking point. And I've spoken about this to the left. My books are all about this. I've preached this to the left, but it's even worse when Republicans try to play the same game. We're talking about that trans issue. And Nikki Haley's campaign launch video sounded like a woke Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light ad talking about how she would kick in heels. At the first debate, she said that only a woman can get this job done. That's what she said. After the third debate, when I criticized Ronna McDaniel after 5 failed years of leadership of this party and criticized Nikki for her corrupt foreign dealings as a military contractor, she said that I have a woman problem. Nikki, I don't have a woman problem. You have a corruption problem. And I think that that's what people need to know. Nikki is corrupt. This is a woman who will send your kids to die so she can buy a bigger house. This is the problem. Using identity politics more effectively than Kamala Harris is a form of intellectual fraud. And it actually needs to end. There's our donor puppet masters wielding their puppet right up here tonight. This is how this game is played. The puppet masters put up their puppet, and I reject the use of identity politics in this party. It has been a cancer coming from the left, and I'm sick and tired of the double standards. The people of this country are too. Having 2 X chromosomes does not immunize you from criticism.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Governor Haley, would you like to respond?
No. It's not worth my time to respond to him.
You have been using identity politics at every step. She knows it's true, and that's why she's actually...
Based. You have a corruption problem. Yes. Yes, she does. But she doesn't want to respond to him, hey? Well, I must say, this is awfully convenient. And I do wonder what her donors said to her before this. Like, Nikki, you're a smart lady and everything. She's not. But when Vivek brings up all the corruption stuff, maybe just sort of go quiet. Don't respond to that sort of stuff because you don't really want to be getting into that sort of stuff. And I mean, definitely don't make any incoherent jokes about your high heels being weapons or something like that. We've tried everything, so now the plan is just to avoid all of that, weather the storm and plead the fifth. But that's what happens, guys, when you actually can't debate anybody because you're a corrupt politician and all of the evidence is there for everyone to see.
It's not worth my time to respond to him.
And now let's watch Vivek's closing remarks where he rips into the climate agenda.
Mr. Ramaswamy?
I'll use this to just address a topic we didn't talk about tonight, but I think is one of the most important topics that needs to be discussed. That is this climate change agenda that is shackling this country like a set of handcuffs. I said it the first debate, and I stand by it. The climate change agenda is a hoax because it has nothing to do with the climate. That's what we have to see. 98% reduction in the climate disaster-related deaths in the last century. 8 times as many people are going to die of cold temperatures this year than warm ones. Yet against that backdrop, there's an issue coming up in Iowa. It's core to Iowa farmers. I met Kim Junker, Kathy Stockdale, and other farmers who are about to have a carbon capture pipeline built across their land using eminent domain to do it. That's unconstitutional and it's wrong. And if you thought COVID was bad, what's coming with this climate agenda is far worse. We should not be bending the knee to this new religion. That is what it is. It is a substitute for a modern religion. We are flogging ourselves and losing our modern way of life, bowing to this new god of climate, and that will end on my watch.
Thank you, Ambassador Haley.
So like I said, guys, very based. And at the moment, I'd say Vivek is winning that spot for second place. I don't care what the polls say. So with that, guys, make sure to check out Ground News below. And please use my link if you're going to, just to help out the channel a little bit. And also, if you'd like to find me, my links are also below. You can subscribe to the channel right here. And if you'd like to watch another video, you can click right here. Till next time, I'm Jake. This is RattlesnakeTV, keeping you armed and dangerous.